Okay, today we have a Panasonic Viera 46-inch plasma. It's a TH-42PZ80B, and as we can see, the fault is present on one half of the display, where the other half is blank, and the picture is completely scrambled. Now, originally when I got this, I bought it faulty. I got it, and the owner said after 30 minutes or so, this happens. But I had it running for about 19 hours and it didn't do anything, and I just went to undo the screws. You'll see that in the next video. And after I plugged it in, after undoing all but a few screws because they're a bit tight to get out, it started doing this. So this tells me it's most likely a loose connector, and when we picked it up, took it on the 50-mile drive, the connector reseated itself or something. It's also possible it's the D board. They have two large BGA processors on there. It's possible that the vibration has caused the BGA joints on the processors to reseat themselves, and they come loose again. But when it works, it's an absolutely fantastic picture. So we know the problem is most likely with the D board, because we can see that, for example, we go into the menu is also distorted, and the noise is very digital-like in nature. It's kind of hard to describe, but when you have an SC board failure, generally the pitch is okay, but it's like over-diffused, which means there's too much white, or it's under-diffused, there's too much dark, or you're getting sparkling pixels. When you get an SU failure or an SD failure, usually half the panel will give issues, but it will be a vertical split instead of a horizontal split, and the only board that splits the picture into two halves is the D board, because it has two large processors on it, so a failure in one of the processors could cause this symptom. So we'll talk about diagnosing this problem, and the D board is available for around £20, so it should be a fairly cheap fix. Okay, well, let's talk about how to diagnose whether it's likely a D board or A board fault. To do this, we'll enter the service menu. You need the original remote to do this. Hold volume down on the set and press 0 3 times within 2 seconds. There won't be any immediate indication, but the screen will blank like that. You see that, and in a second the service information comes at the top of the screen. It's hard to see. But then press the green button, so the red button, twice, and you'll get that. And now we notice this test pattern doesn't affect, this test pattern affects the whole display, as does that one, and that one, and that one. So perhaps it's not the D board, although I do know that these TVs, this test pattern is actually generated by the D board. So this test pattern here is generated by the A board. So perhaps it's the A board. We'll have to take it apart to determine where the cause exactly is. But it may end up being an A board replacement, which is about £50, which isn't as great, but you can't have everything. Let's see that. But we can see it's able to drive the panel correctly when it gets information from the A board telling it to do these patterns, because these patterns are generated on the D board side. So either the A board is faulty, or the connection between the A board and the D board is faulty. And as you can probably see, it's quite a beast. We've got a massive sustain boards on either side of the panel. Just give you a little tour, because it is pretty cool. That's the SC board, sometimes called Y sustain or Y main. Buffer boards, there are two of them, they're split. Board purely, whose purpose is to split the fan connectors out. Power supply board, which is massive. Now, interesting thing about this power supply board, you'll notice there's no heat sinks except that one there on the top, and it turns out actually all the transistors for the heat sinks are mounted to a metal plate. So it acts as an excellent heatsink, and that's why I've got two fans there to pull air through that. Over here we have the SS board. Now I've done the 42-inch PZ80, and I think the sustain boards are very similar. and they're not quite the same, but they're very similar. And I noticed these capacitors before and I never could figure them out because 100 volt rated. Now I've looked at the schematic, turns out they're for VDA, because VDA power comes into the panel down there. So yeah, this panel sure uses a lot of power, about 470 watt full white. So it's pretty power hungry, and they've got to have a lot of decoupling on the boards to keep everything happy. But anyway, enough electronics porn. Instead we'll look at the problem, which in this case is most likely the LVDS cable. Since board is off, you must remember this power supply here, this is live, will kill you if you touch it, so don't. Down here we've got the LVDS cable. It's kind of hard to reach with the camera. And basically what I found is one end of this cable was loose. I can't remove it unfortunately, holding the camera. But there's two little clips on each side, you just press them in and you lift the cable out. And one end was a little loose and I pushed it in. And I reckon that's probably the problem, because apparently it's quite a common issue. This end was fine, and it can happen after the TV's moved or bumped, or sometimes just because it wasn't inserted properly at the factory. Perhaps they were in a bit of a rush or something. Even big companies make mistakes. Other issues with this set, I mean, this is one of the sets which can suffer from 10 and 2 blinks. Norcal 715 has an excellent video on how to repair it. There's some ceramic caps on there that can fail leaky, I believe, and cause problems with those chips to start up the power. And you can have, very rare the sustain boards in this set to fail, but you can have 6, 7 or 8 blinks from the sustain boards. And if you've got an 11 blink code, then the fans are probably dirty and one of them's jammed, because the TV will shut down if there is a problem with the fans, because this thing produces a phenomenal amount of heat. It's not efficient at all. This would make environmentalists scream in agony. And you know, that's the penalty for an older plasma. This thing is 470 watt full white. It's really, really inefficient. Anyway, just reseated that D-bod cable, see if it works. As we can clearly see, it's a beautiful image on the screen. It's working perfectly. I've also dusted it, well, just blew some compressed air, cleaned out all the dust in the set because it had quite a bit in it. I've noticed the VSUS on this panel is rated 193, which is actually quite low for Panny. Typically it's about 200 volts, but it's one of their older models. And it's actually measuring 196, but it's a matter of whether or not I really care enough to adjust that, because it is working fine and I don't want to adjust something that works fine. If it gives some maldischarge issues as it gets older, I'll have to take it down from the wall or something and adjust the VSUS a little. But it might just be because my meter is a plus minus 0.7% or plus minus 1% or something like that. Any inaccuracy, I mean, you're thinking about that's at least 2 volts that could be out on a 200 volt supply, so it can make a difference to VSUS because it's suggested to adjust it within 1 volt. So I'll leave it as is because it appears to be working. Those pots don't tend to drift. Other things, I've cleaned the heat sinks of dust. I've done nothing else really, and now I'm just going to run it in and see if it gives any more problems. And more than likely it's fixed. So £70 for a full HD 46-inch plasma TV and a Panasonic at that. Don't come across these deals that often. When you do, they're awesome.